Okay. Realest possible fucking talk. This is the first one of these we're doing.
Okay.
So we're going all out. 4 men in a room. Totally fine.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about wrestling today. Also, totally fine.
Sure.
We're going to go around. I'm going to introduce people. Obviously, I'm an asshole. I got a special guest here. My best friend, Brandon.
My name is Brando Amore, and I'm a certified G and a bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. And sitting to my right, this is Big Jess, and he acts like he's 7 foot tall, and you can't teach that.
Yep.
And sitting to my left, this is Big Corey, and he acts like he's hot as hell, and you can't teach that. And this to my far left, this is Big J, and he kind of looks like Samoa Joe, and you can't teach that. Realest guys in the room, how you doing?
That was Brandon, everybody.
And that intro was SAWFT soft.
Oh, it wasn't that bad.
I know, but I had to work soft in some way.
Yeah.
Speaking of soft, here's Corey wearing a
Corey.
Jervis cotton belly
Yeah,
shirt.
there you go.
Yeah.
The gentleman of wrestling.
And then last but not least, we have, what'd you call him?
Big J.
Big J.
Oh,
Big Jess, Big Corey, and Big J.
Who looks nothing like Samoa Joe, but
Okay.
you know, yeah.
I had to say something.
You can
I can't
agree
leave
to
him out.
disagree.
All right. So hey Jay, what's up?
What's up, everybody? How's it going?
We're here to talk about wrestling. We're here to talk about wrestling. So we're all wrestling fans to some degree or another. And I guess a good place to start is at the beginning. So let's go around.
Way back in the early 1900s.
Let's take the Wayback Machine. Yeah, when wrestling was real.
Yeah.
And it was a national pastime, real talk.
Yes.
And matches would last upwards of 3 hours.
Like podcasts.
And they would be so riveting that people would be in holds for fucking
hours on end.
Minutes.
To be fair, they probably had like 4 moves back then. Like, I bet the body slam was like, holy shit.
The body slam might have been illegal. Who knows?
Oh, yeah.
So, okay. I'm going to start with the special guest. Brandon, what got you into wrestling? What's your first wrestling memory?
Guys like Kabbalah, Bret the Hitman Hart, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan.
Now, when did you start that? Like, how old were you? Did you start in the 80s?
Late.
Did you start when Hulk Hogan was the guy?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What about that guy on your shirt?
Oh, Macho Man, Randy Savage. Oh, yeah, dig it. Snap it to a Slim Jim.
As a little kid, were you feeling the Macho Madness?
The Macho Madness was running wild, brother. That was a little bit. But
that was the Mega Power.
That was
the Mega Power.
Yeah.
You know, they would like go for a shake and just...
Listen, dude, don't step on my lines, all right, brother? When you're messing with the 20-inch pythons, don't take my gimmicks, dude. So anyways, yeah, real talk. So give us some early, what got you into wrestling? Why did you become a fan? Like, what about it made you like it?
The theatrics.
Sure.
Of it, being able to tell a story. The fact that it never had an off-season, unlike, football.
Sports, yeah, baseball.
But,
hacky sack.
Hacky sack.
Yeah.
Hopscotch.
That's true. Hopscotch has an off-season.
StarCraft.
Now let's just leave that alone.
That's a different podcast.
Keep us on track, Corey.
Leave that alone. Okay. All right, let's regroup. Corey, what got you into wrestling?
I remember being very young, going to every Christmas there'd be like a family reunion thing, and one of my uncles was really into it, and so that was the first time I saw it at all. And then even though we weren't poor yet, we didn't have cable TV, so I could never actually watch it. But then SmackDown was on broadcast.
Oh shit!
So SmackDown is when I started watching it.
Give us an age. Like, how old were you the first time you think you saw wrestling?
The first time I saw it at all, let's ballpark 8 or 9.
What about you, Brent? You didn't give us an age.
I'd say about 7 or 8.
Okay.
And then I started watching it, 11 or 12, when SmackDown was,
and Kane
on the
was
TV.
real. Kane was real.
Yeah, at that point, when I was watching wrestling was fucking real.
Yeah.
So, as far as a memory, I remember after becoming poor, living in the shitty, uninsulated half of a duplex, and Kane was chasing down DX, and I was, literally just yes! I was like moving around like, I was gonna fucking get him! I was so fucking pumped.
He was hyped.
I would play online RPGs. I remember I had a character named Kane, and the password was X-Pac must die.
Oh my
Because he stole his girlfriend!
That's true.
Stole his fucking girlfriend!
Stole Tori. Yeah.
But to be fair, Tori wasn't, she was kind of a burger.
Well, it was
Jesus
real to me.
Christ.
It was real to me.
What about you, Jay? You got the floor.
Let's see.
How old?
Age?
Yeah.
Really young. My dad loves wrestling.
Yeah.
So he used to watch it, despite the fact that my mom didn't like my brother and I. We're only a year apart watching it, because then we would jump
moves
on
on each other. Yeah.
Elbow drops and DDTs.
Yeah.
You were like the Usos.
Earliest memories, old school Sting when he had the beach blonde.
Woo! Woo!
Yeah, a lot of that old WCW.
WCW.
A lot of Ric Flair and
yeah,
it was good stuff.
What was it that got you into wrestling? Why do you like it?
I don't know. A little bit of the storytelling.
Yeah.
We can discuss that later.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but it's just it was a fun storyline, and there's that physical. Everybody likes those big buff dudes just beating each other up and wrestling around. I guess when you're kids, you like to wrestle. It just seems natural.
Yeah.
Sure.
Some nice athleticism.
Yeah.
It's good.
So me,
in the spirit of competition.
So I have a unique background in wrestling because I wasn't allowed to watch it until in my teens. Basically, after my grandmother died, I moved to here, and I actually got into wrestling through Brandon. There was a lot of things that I wasn't allowed to partake in as a kid, and so part of how I would cope with that, I think, is I would tell myself that I wasn't missing out. Like, oh, wrestling's fucking dumb. Ninja Turtles is fucking dumb, whatever, because I don't get to watch it, right? And so I was like, whatever, wrestling. And then I was hanging out with Brandon. I met Brandon through Harold, and hanging out with Brandon over at his house the first couple times, I'm sure I would see him watching Monday Night Raw or whatever. And, I'm sure initially I still thought, oh, what are you watching this shit for, right? But then, I saw The Undertaker. The Undertaker came out with his lights and his music and his pomp and circumstance, and I'm like, who the fuck's this guy? And Brandon told me about him, and he's this fucking dude, and he's undead, and he's got dark powers. I'm like, sold. And so that was what got me into wrestling, was literally The Undertaker. And from there, I started getting more into the art of it and the mechanics. And of course, I like the moves. It is a sport. It's an exhibition sport because it's an exhibition of holds and athleticism. And I like the storylines, although to be fair, honestly, if you're really into wrestling, you shouldn't be in it for the storylines. That shouldn't be the first thing you love because a lot of them are really bad.
Well, when you're young,
yeah. You don't give a shit.
You get drawn into the storyline because it's this is a cool story.
I feel sorry for a little kid who started in the Attitude Era, and they're like, dude, those guys almost chopped off Val Venus's pee-pee, okay? But yeah, I got into wrestling because I still like it to this day because of the theatrics. It's a performance. When it's done right, it's a performance art, and I just like good moves. I like athleticism. I like fighting. Except I like being able to watch fighting, knowing that they're not actually killing each other. So there you go. That's any other early memories you guys want to share? Good early memories that you remember, really, yeah!
I think pretty much any time the Legion of Doom came out for me.
Whoa, what a rush!
I don't know why, but face paint and spiky shoulder pads,
well! Yeah.
Those guys came out, it does that water rush thing, and you're like, oh, someone's getting their ass kicked today by some tough-looking dudes.
Absolutely.
And the Doomsday device, their finisher
one of the best tag finishers of all time.
I remember Dad really liked The Rock. He specifically liked it when The Rock was improvising and the other guy couldn't keep up. So I do remember that. I remember watching it with my dad briefly.
I remember a flash forward a few more years and the whole John Cena Rock feud and John Cena actually
Corey just got a text from John Cena!
John Cena sucks! John Cena sucks!
You're in a theater,
I'm in a theater.
Fucking asshole.
Oh, you didn't show me that commercial. It tells me how to turn off my phone with the cute little minions.
Keep going.
Oh, crap. What was I saying?
Yeah, what were you
Before I was so rudely interrupted.
Yeah, by a lonely boy.
Awkward.
Flash forward a few years.
Oh, yeah, the whole John Cena Rock thing. And John Cena kind of got Rock in a situation. He's just like, oh, well, Johnson, it doesn't matter, John Cena. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. They're the same person, John. It doesn't matter. Blah, 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 blah. And totally got him, like, off key. It was...
Yeah. That's flash forwarding quite a bit. But, like, I think the caveat to that is that, like, modern Rock, who shows up in the WWE once in a while now, is not the Rock he used to be.
Oh, yeah.
He's not sharp anymore.
Yeah, he's not, like, big time fucking the main player.
When he came back during that crap, like, he was just the Rock light. He was the Rock by numbers. It was nice for people like Corey who were big fans of his to see him, but it wasn't exciting because, like, he literally did or said nothing new. He was a distilled version of the Rock from, like, 1999, except not as witty.
I still remember me being an old person. Like that whole just when the Rock came out, he's like Rocky Maivia.
Yeah, happy go lucky.
And then he joins the Nation of Domination, even though he wasn't like super black like everybody else.
Yeah,
like,
he was a little black.
He was a little black, but he was like
not like Owen Hart levels, but you know.
Yeah, well,
Owen Hart was the blackest.
I forgot that he was in that stable.
Oh, come on, he was the Black Heart.
Well, if you're going to go in that direction, keep in mind that the Nation of Domination didn't start out as like a Brotherhood, Nation of Islam type send-up. It was like white guy, Crush, and it was Puerto Rican, Savio Vega as like the lackeys. And, like, way too many other guys who didn't actually wrestle, like the white rappers, the MCs and everybody. They had a whole fucking entourage that would come out, like 13 people. 3 of them wrestled.
But I was glad Fruit got some airtime and a platform.
Damn!
Other than being a catchphrase to show up. Yeah.
That's true. Catchphrase. That didn't come around for a while.
No, but still.
Now, I don't know. My earliest memories, going back to what got me into it, the guy that got me into it, was just when I was, 14, 15 years old, seeing The Undertaker come out and take a fucking chair shot from someone and just stand up. Like, what? And I'm like, at that age, I was able to believe that shit was real.
Yeah.
I was able to be like, dude, that didn't even fucking phase him. You can't phase him, bro. And I'm like, yeah. That's why I fucking hated Kane when he first came around, because he was hurting The Undertaker. He was phasing The Undertaker. Undertaker wasn't shrugging his shit off, and I fucking hated his ass.
Well, no, it's because he's his half brother. He knows.
Yeah. No, and I was going.
He had the power of Paul Bearer.
You don't understand, though. I legit hated the guy because I'm like, dude, Kane's just a fucking cheap Undertaker ripoff. He's not as athletic. He's fatter. He can't fucking walk the ropes. What a piece of shit. Yeah, I was legit mad. Legit fucking mad.
For sure.
Yeah?
For sure.
Any other big memories? Any big matches?
From, like, when I first started watching
when you were younger. It doesn't have to be when you're a baby, but...
One of my, not too far back, but more recently, the big match was the match at WrestleMania 13, the I Quit match, between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret the Hitman Hart.
Bret the Hitman Hart. Real talk, I was watching regularly by that point. And, yeah, I fucking hated Stone Cold. Because he was messing with Bret Hart. Bret was the fucking Hitman. And it aggravated me to no end that, like, what are these fucking fans doing? Cheering this asshole who stuns everybody, doesn't care, no honor. And Bret's a good guy. Bret's a fucking straight-laced dude, and he's getting booed? Fucking fans. Right. I was not with it.
And it was becoming unreal before your eyes.
It
was. Yeah.
It was.
The fans were chanting for the anti-hero.
And the thing was, like, Bret didn't turn heel. They didn't start booing him as a manufactured event because he started going. He didn't start trashing the fans until after they were already booing him. Because he was still the same Bret. He was saying the same shit he'd always said. And so, like, when he started the pro-Canada, anti-America thing, like you could honestly argue that the fans instigated it, you know? And it was good, but it also aggravated me. Pieces of shit. Stone Cold Steve Austin. What an asshole.
When I was younger, one of our next door neighbors, she worked at like a motel, and she always cleaned everything, and people would just leave the magazines they bought there.
Yeah.
She'd always give them to my mom. I remember one time my mom was like, "Oh, you might like this one," and it was like just some magazine, and it had like wrestling stuff in it. And I remember it was talking about Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth, who, of course, at the time I had a crush on because
of course.
Miss Elizabeth.
Yeah, nice lady.
And it had like some behind the scenes at their home kind of thing. And man,
you shouldn't have read that. You shouldn't have read that. Yeah.
Well, they didn't talk about her.
Okay.
It was kayfabe behind the scenes.
It was kayfabe behind the scenes. Yes. So, but it felt at the time like, this is like, a peek into their lives. This is so interesting. And then when you grow up and you become like a jaded person, and we have like all the information at hand.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're like, you read about their actual behind the scenes, and you're like, man.
I will say
these
that.
people did a lot of cocaine.
I will say that. And I'm sure all of you could agree with me to some level. When I first got into wrestling, shit was real. And even though I knew that the matches were the endings of the matches were predetermined, and I knew it wasn't like, man, this guy legitimately be that guy, I was able to distill disbelief and I enjoyed it more. I got more excited, I got more hyped. I mean, granted, it was also a bit better back then, right? Obviously. But I was able to get more into it. I was more emotionally invested when I didn't know. There was no internet, and I didn't know all this fucking behind-the-scenes shit. You know, all these reading about rumors and backstage politic bullshit and business side of stuff and creative decisions. I was honestly, it's kind of, on the one hand, it's neat to know that shit, but on the other hand, it just makes me mad. And, I felt like I got more out of wrestling as a youngin' in my teens when I didn't know that shit, you know?
Well, definitely, because nowadays, you always run, if you're on wrestling pages, and you still top 10 80s and 90s wrestlers who stab people, and it's just you read these stories of what they did on the road, and man, you definitely enjoyed it more.
Well, sure, I read Bret the Hitman Hart's autobiography, and it's a great book, and I still like him a lot. He's still my second favorite wrestler of all time, but he was very candid about how he lived and how many times he cheated on his wife and shit and all this stuff. And, I respect him for being honest and telling the truth about all that, but at the same time, I can't lie and say that didn't, diminish my respect for him a little. I still respect him a lot as a wrestler, but, as a person, the way he was living is, I had always, you idealize these people that you like, and I had always idealized that he was the hitman outside the ring, too. And to be fair, to a point he was, when it came to, being straight-laced with other wrestlers, and he never, backstabbed anyone or screwed anyone over or politic too hard. But when it came to things like that, screwing around on his wife and
I think that's one of those things where it's just, that's probably for a lot of people, not just wrestlers, musicians, that's road life, it seems.
It sucks, yeah.
I mean, you can go back and watch, old Macho Man promos. Especially the one where he has the cream of the crop promo.
Yeah, cream of the crop.
He keeps pulling it out.
And you look at that, and you're like, when you're younger, you're like, that he's intense. Yeah. He's but when you get older, and you're like, that's probably cocaine. He probably, he's probably on something. And then there's a whole steroid thing.
And it's more seductive than sex! You can't say that.
Ultimate Warrior, R.I.P. also. That was somebody who absolutely, if you want to see a poster boy that guy's fucking hype on steroids. That was him. Coming down to the ring. He would run all the way to the ring, and he'd be fucking out of breath after he ran to the ring. And straight on the road,
keep in mind, he might have just been crazy.
Also, it was a little of both.
And I didn't even think, off the top of my head, I should have came with notes today. One of my earlier memories, actually going to see some wrestlers live.
Fuck, as a kid?
As a kid. In our little dinky town, they came to the fairgrounds. We have this old photo album, and it has a whole bunch of pictures.
This fairgrounds?
This fairgrounds.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Alright.
But yeah, we got to see, Ultimate Warrior was there, Nikolai Volkov.
No shit.
Coco Beware. And there's actually a picture of me and, my little cousins. sitting on the ring apron like after the show. Like
that's
nice.
awesome. Now, Brandon, you have a similar memory. Didn't you see wrestling at some point as a younger person?
Unfortunately, not. I've never.
I could have sworn your dad told the story about that.
Yeah,
Maybe he did.
He's been to a wrestling show.
Okay.
Me personally, I've never been to a wrestling show. Hopefully, in the next couple years.
In your whole life,
as an adult,
in my whole life.
Holy crap!
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But hopefully, here in the next couple years, I'll be able to attend a show. Maybe even attend a WrestleMania. That would be. That would be the deal.
We're not gonna bring that up.
No, we won't. Well, we will, but not right now.
Not right now.
Okay. So I guess
back at the moment to the
on the topic of being disillusioned with wrestling and all that, the internet, etc. Like, it's not just wrestling that applies to. Because,
Sure.
Like that's the sort of thing that also,
you
know, like when I can't watch a Tom Cruise movie anymore because I know he's crazy. Like I can't do that.
Damn,
I just pretend he's two different people.
Exactly, it's that kind of thing. Or you get your Michael Jacksons and all that.
Yeah.
Right? Where you had to try to start separating things from whatever. But also because, like, when I would watch wrestling, I have no idea at what point, like, I really learned, like, oh, this is a performance. Because when I first started watching it, I think I immediately just went, like, oh, well, it's just a TV show. Like, the answer I give people when they're asking, like, oh, how did you ever... It's like, well, when you watch Power Rangers... they're real people, but you don't think they actually have space powers and shoot aliens. When I watch wrestling, maybe I didn't, like, directly drill into it and go, like, oh, that's a really good performance, like I do these days because I'm old and dead inside. But I was still like, oh, it's a show.
That's the difference. I will say that's the difference. That I think that was my point that I didn't get around to, is that back then, in the 90s when I was young, I was able to just sit and enjoy the show. I was able to sit and watch Raw every week, SmackDown when it happened, and like a lot of it was fucking dumb, like beaver cleavage and whatever the hell Vince Russo came up with. But I was still I lived for like those little Undertaker vignettes, or like when Edge came along, I lived for an Edge vignette or a Mankind promo, Whereas now it's like I hate it, but like I'll fucking watch a match, and like even though I'm trying to just sit and enjoy the show, like even with the shit I watch now, non-WWE stuff, I'll still be like, oh, they did that because of that, and it's like, shut the fuck up and just enjoy the show,
Like when you watch it enough, like when you watch movies,
yes,
and behind the scene or technique stuff, and you're like, oh, that's why they did this. That's why they did
that shot, and you get pulled out of it.
And you get pulled out of it, or say you're watching like a Royal Rumble, and your thought is like, what is the thing that will happen?
Yes.
Corey does that. Royal Rumble.
Who's number 30 gonna be? Jay?
John Cena. Of course it's John Cena.
We'll get back to that. We'll get back
early from injury.
All right. So
calm down, Corey.
I think I'm having PTSD. I'm having PTSD.
Corey, we're gonna take a quick few. We're gonna take a break because Corey needs to calm down.
Son of a bitch.
John Cena sucks.
But I think that's a good set of memories, guys.
In case you forgot or fell off, I'm still hot, knocking.